The first time his son screamed without making a sound, the entire hospital room went silent. Not the kind of silence that settles gently. Not the kind you welcome. This was the kind that claws into your chest and makes your heart beat louder just to fill it. Ethan Caldwell stood frozen beside the hospital bassinet, watching his newborn son's tiny face turn red, mouth wide open in what should have been a cry that split the air. But there was nothing. No wail, no fragile newborn sound. Just the mechanical hum of machines and the faint shuffle of nurses pretending not to look worried. Have you ever seen something so wrong that your body knows it before your mind can catch up? Why can't I hear him? Ethan asked, his voice already breaking. The doctor hesitated too long. That hesitation became the first fracture in a life that had always seemed indestructible. Ethan Caldwell was not used to hesitation. As the founder of Caldwell Technologies, he had built his empire from a rented garage to $1 billion valuation before he turned 40. Investors didn't hesitate around him. Employees didn't question him. The world moved when he spoke. But in that hospital room, under fluorescent lights that made everything look pale and fragile, he was just a father watching his wife, Margaret, tremble in the bed as she clutched at the sheets. The tests came quickly, too quickly. Words like congenital, sensory neural, and profound hearing loss floated through the air like smoke. By morning, the diagnosis was clear. Their son, Oliver James Caldwell, was born completely deaf. Margaret cried quietly, shoulders shaking as she held their baby to her chest. Ethan stood at the window, staring out at the skyline he once believed he controlled. Have you ever built an empire and still felt completely powerless? I'll fix this, he said, more to himself than to anyone else. The doctor's eyes softened with something that felt dangerously close to pity. Mr. Caldwell, this isn't something money fixes. But Ethan didn't believe that. Money fixed everything. It always had. He poured millions into specialists. Flew in top audiologists from Switzerland. Commissioned experimental treatments. When Oliver was 9 months old, surgeons implanted the most advanced cochlear device available. Ethan stood outside the operating room with fists clenched, praying in a way he hadn't prayed since he was a boy kneeling beside his mother's bed in their tiny apartment. When the device was activated weeks later, the room filled with anticipation. Margaret held Oliver close. Ethan crouched in front of him, smiling too wide, too desperate. The audiologist made adjustments. A soft sound played through the system. Oliver blinked. Then he began to cry. A silent cry. The doctor adjusted settings again. Higher, lower, different frequencies. Oliver squirmed, confused, frustrated. But there was no recognition. No widening of the eyes. No startled joy. The room fell quiet again. Ethan felt something collapse inside him. He's not responding, Margaret whispered. The audiologist removed the device gently. There are cases, she said carefully, where even with implantation, the auditory nerve does not process signals effectively. Ethan didn't hear the rest. At home, Oliver grew into a quiet toddler with curious eyes. He laughed without sound, his face lighting up in a way that both warmed and broke Ethan's heart. Margaret learned basic sign language. She sat on the floor with Oliver for hours, shaping his small fingers into gestures for milk, more, love. Ethan tried, but something in him resisted. He hired speech therapists, enrolled Oliver in elite programs that promised integration into the hearing world. He won't be limited, Ethan insisted. Margaret looked at him one night across the dining table of their glass-walled mansion. He's not limited, she said softly. He's different. Ethan stood up abruptly. He deserves every opportunity. He deserves acceptance, she replied. Their marriage began to crack in the spaces between those words. Have you ever loved someone and still felt worlds apart? By the time Oliver turned 7, Margaret had moved into the guest wing. The house felt divided, not by walls but by grief expressed differently. Ethan buried himself in work. Margaret buried herself in advocacy groups and late-night reading about deaf culture. Oliver moved between them like a quiet orbit. One afternoon, after a tense board meeting, Ethan decided impulsively to pick up Oliver from school himself. The elite private academy had accepted Oliver after Ethan funded an entire new accessibility wing. Yet despite the polished brochures and smiling administrators, Oliver often sat alone during recess. As Ethan approached the playground, he saw it. 3 boys standing around Oliver. Laughing. Oliver was signing something urgently, his hands moving fast, face tight with frustration. One of the boys mimicked him exaggeratedly, twisting his fingers mockingly. Ethan felt heat rise from his chest to his throat. He strode forward. The boys scattered instantly when they saw him. Oliver looked up, startled. Ethan crouched down. What happened? Oliver's hands moved hesitantly. Ethan caught only fragments. They say, weird. Ethan swallowed hard. Have you ever wanted to tear the world apart for your child? That evening, he pulled funding from the academy. The next week, Oliver was enrolled in another school. Then another. None felt right. Margaret finally confronted him in the kitchen. You can't buy him belonging, she said. Ethan slammed his hand against the marble counter. Then what do you suggest? She stepped closer, tears in her eyes. You learn his language. Silence. Real silence. Not the kind Oliver lived in. The kind adults create. Months passed. Then came the night everything shifted. Ethan had just closed a deal worth hundreds of millions. The celebration dinner was at a high-end downtown restaurant. He brought Oliver with him, determined to prove something, to whom, he wasn't sure. The restaurant buzzed with conversation and clinking glasses. Oliver sat beside him, small hands folded, eyes scanning the room curiously. Midway through the meal, Oliver dropped his fork. It clattered to the floor, unnoticed by him but startling to others. A few executives glanced over with annoyance. Ethan bent to retrieve it, embarrassed. Can I get you another? A voice asked gently. Ethan looked up. The waitress standing there was young, maybe mid-20s. Dark hair pulled back in a simple tie. Kind eyes. Her name tag read Maya. It's fine, Ethan said shortly. But Oliver was staring at her. Maya smiled softly at him. Then something unexpected happened. She signed. Not awkwardly, not slowly, fluently. Her hands moved with graceful precision. Hello. Oliver's entire body went still. Have you ever witnessed a miracle so small and yet so enormous that it steals your breath? Oliver's eyes widened. He blinked once. Then his hands moved back, tentative at first. Hello. Maya's smile deepened. What's your name? Oliver's fingers shaped each letter carefully. Oliver. Ethan stared, frozen. He had never seen his son's face light up like that. Not during therapy sessions. Not during expensive interventions. Not during award ceremonies or birthday parties. This was different. This was recognition. Maya turned to Ethan and spoke aloud gently. He has beautiful signing. Ethan opened his mouth but no words came. Oliver tugged at his sleeve, signing rapidly now. Excited. Animated. Ethan caught nothing. He felt it again. That fracture. Maya interpreted softly. He's asking if I was born deaf. Ethan watched her respond in sign first, then aloud. No, my brother is. Oliver's face shifted. Something between curiosity and understanding. Maya continued signing with him, asking about school, favorite games, dreams. Oliver responded eagerly, hands flying with confidence Ethan had never seen before. The executives at the table fell silent, watching the exchange. Ethan felt something unfamiliar twist inside him. Jealousy. Not of wealth, not of power.